Hello, everybody. We're going to get started right away today. But I want to say again, hello, everybody, and welcome back to TMR's Master Advisor series. Today is December 8th. This is episode number 63. We're going to be talking about service fees today with Tiffany Himes, but I have a few quick announcements to make, and then I'm going to introduce today's sponsor. So let's get started. Before I do anything else, I just want to thank everyone for joining us this year on MasterAdvisor. Today is our last scheduled one for 2022, and we'll be back in January, but our whole team here just wanted to say thank you to all of our guests, all of our sponsors, and most importantly, all of our travel advisors who join us on these calls throughout the year. We really are very thankful and really humbled to have hosted so many of you on this series over the last 12 months. We really can't wait to do it again next year too. And I know there's so many people we can thank and mention on this series, but I know that we have a lot to get to today, so I won't go into all of it. But I do want to mention that if you want to relive any of the 2022's episodes, they're all available on our YouTube channel in order, on demand for free. There's sessions on TikTok, there's sessions on Instagram Reels. We've spoken about CRMs, we've spoken about a lot about luxury travel, and today's on service fees will be up there later this afternoon. So if you want to head over there, you can. But again, I just want to say thanks to everyone who has lent a hand this year to making this such a successful series, including our producer, Tom, who handles everything on the back end here, and Lewis on our team, who handles a lot of the marketing. We do have today's session as the last one left, but I just want to sort of reiterate the thank you to everyone who joined us this year. And before we get to Tiffany, because I know there's a lot of questions that came in about service fees, and I want to get to those too. I want to go ahead and introduce our sponsor for today's session. It's Tyler Seidel from ALG Vacations.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you everybody for taking some time out to either watch this live or to watch the recorded version of this. Really appreciate being able to be a sponsor and be part of this with your Master Advisor series, and thank you to everybody at Travel Market Report on behalf of all of us here at ALG Vacations. So getting into the topic of today, service fees, we make it really accessible to you with ALG Vacations. You can add a service fee right to any of your bookings. That is an uncapped service fee with any of our brands. In our pricing window in the upper right-hand corner, right underneath that, you'll see a link for booking administration. In there, you can go in and you can add a service fee either by a dollar amount or a percentage of the package. There's a line item if you want to include that as an actual line item on your reservation. Otherwise, it will just roll up to the total package price. One thing I do hear a lot of is once a booking is made, you're not able to add a service fee with us, which is actually untrue. So if you go to the modifications tab at the bottom of reservation and then go into change component, now you're in the modification mode and you can either edit your service fee or you can add a service fee and then continue your checkout. So I just wanted to make that point because a lot of people aren't familiar with that. So we make it super accessible for you. And just to close off here before we hear from our true expert today, but just my personal take on service fees. So I am all for them. I think it's just getting over your own personal obstacle when it happens to be, around service fees. So my advice would be to start small, whether that's, rounding up to the nearest dollar, adding a dollar, and then working your way up to $5, $10, $15, $25, whatever that may be, whatever you feel that your time and investment is worth on that reservation. So that's my take. I'm going to stick around and hear what we have to hear from the experts. But thank you again. Really appreciate your time joining us and you allowing us to sponsor this awesome topic.
Yeah, well, thank you, Tyler. Thanks for coming on today. We really do appreciate it, and we've had a few different ALG Vacations individuals join us. So thank you to everyone again. I just want to mention a couple things before I introduce Tiffany. The chat is open. I see people already jumping in there. If you do have questions, drop them in, and we'll do our best to get them answered as we go along today. A lot of people did send questions prior to today's session, and we have those too. And we're going to do our very, very best to get to all of them in the next 45 minutes or so. I know we have about 170 guests and participants in here. So I just want to get a sense of what kind of procedures people in the chat or in the room right now are undertaking. So we have a poll we're going to launch, just a simple yes or no about charging service fees. But while you answer that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest for today. I am very, very happy to welcome Tiffany Himes from Global Escapes, who is here to talk to us about service fees. Tiffany's a prior Master Advisor guest. She's a NASA board member, and she's someone who I'm very happy that we were able to wrap up the year with. So again, Tiffany, thank you so much for joining us today, and we really are excited to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And since this is the last one for the year, maybe I'll just say maybe you saved the best for last. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. That was the plan all along, I have to say.
No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding to all of you who have done a session earlier this year with Dan, because I think these have been so helpful over the last couple of years with everything that we've all been through. It's been really refreshing to see the industry kind of come together and help each other with best practices. So it's all good.
All right, so I see the poll is still running, but it seems to be about 3/4 of the people, of the 175 or so advisors who are on the call today, do charge service fees. So we're going to run through our topic today with that in mind. But Tiffany, I was just hoping you could kick us off. I know you've been in business for a while now, and you're a veteran travel agent, a very successful one. But I was hoping you could take us through sort of your service fee journey and just tell us a little bit about your experience charging service fees.
Sure. So we opened our business in 1988. My mother actually started our company, so I was in college at the time. And of course, those of us who've been in the industry long enough remember in the mid 90s, 1995 to be exact, when airlines started changing their compensation model to travel agencies, and it was kind of a mad scramble in the industry. And I remember at the time, it was we were in a very vulnerable position. We were 100% dependent on the prices that the airlines would set for what they charged for their services. And so we quickly pivoted and implemented a service fee schedule for our corporate travelers. But it wasn't until in around 2002 to 2004 that we began charging fees for leisure travel. And part of it for me was after my second daughter was born and I was working from home and I was scheduling time to come in and meet with clients in the evenings or on the weekends. And what I was realizing is that I was giving them just enough information to take that and then go book online. And, it was kind of an awakening for me to realize that I was giving a lot of valuable information away for free, and I needed to quit doing that.
All right. So I know we spoke in 2020, and that was in the beginning of the pandemic, in the beginning stages, I guess, of the pandemic. And we spoke about service fees, and there was a lot of questions about just the general how to start charging service fees. And from the poll today and from sort of my general conversations in the industry, it does seem like it's become normalized, whether it's been in the last 3 years or it's been a longer process. And I'm curious on your end, Tiffany, what do you see in the industry now with service fees? Is this something that is fully normalized? Have clients sort of fully accepted that this is going to be a part of their process as well?
I do think it is absolutely becoming normalized, and it's really good to hear these poll numbers today. And I think, that was one of the reasons why when you and I talked a few months ago about possibly doing this session, that I thought it was very important before we get into 2023 for anybody who is still on the fence or is struggling in this area. I really want to try to help those get over that hurdle. It really is. I think for most people, they're in their own way. They are the ones that are having a problem. And I know that for many people, and I know this is the way it was for us for many years, it was trying to figure out how to overcome those objections and how to confidently speak about the services that you offer so that you're not waffling when you're on the phone or in front of a client. You can be confident and so it really, I think, comes down to the confidence of the advisor and the conversations. And I have some scripts and things that I'll talk about at the end today that I'll share with people on how to kind of overcome some of those objections.
Okay. And then I want to go into, we spoke earlier in the week about the first few steps so the people who maybe are on the fence can start in 23, but I don't want to miss a big news over the past few months that since we last spoke to was that ASA moved to add charging service fees as part of its credo. And I know you're on the board with ASA, but I'm just hoping you could tell us a little bit about what does ASA adding service fees to part of what being a professional travel advisor means do to the practice?
Well, I think first of all, what we have to realize is that, our industry's been around a really long time, and like any business or any industry, you have to continue to evolve. And I was actually listening to a podcast the other day, and it kind of nailed it for me. You have to constantly evolve to stay relevant. And I really think in our industry, we are in a pivotal time of when we need to reevaluate why we're relevant as individual business owners, as individual advisors. What are we adding to the process? What is the value that we're adding to our clients? And, one of the first things that many people typically ask me is, can you share your fee schedule with me? And I typically say no, and mainly because I don't want people to take, my business model may be very different from theirs, and they really need to think about their business model, the type of clients that they service, the type of travel that they work with, and and what their time is worth. I mean, that's part of it, but it is really just trying to kind of make sure that are you relevant? I mean, if you truly are talking to clients and they're coming to you and they're telling you exactly what they want, and you're really just booking those items, you are still a booking agent if you're not adding additional value. And so you really have to kind of take a deep dive into that to kind of figure out what are you adding to the process.
Okay, so I know, like you mentioned, Tiffany, we're going to get questions about sharing your fee schedule. We're not going to do that. I also know we're going to get questions about specific state laws, and we have that information available on travelmarketreport.com. There are some laws, particularly in California and Florida, that travel advisors charging fees have to abide by, and ASA I know can help with that too. So we won't be providing those answers, but if someone on the TMR team might be able to find the article we wrote about this, we can drop it in the chat. But let's go ahead and get into sort of the first few steps it takes to start charging service fees. I know a majority on the call do already do it, but I know there's still 25% who don't. And I was hoping, Tiffany, you could lead us through sort of the 3 steps that we spoke about earlier in the week that you can take to sort of start implementing this practice.
So the first step is really you have to kind of get your mind right. Like any kind of change that you're ever going to make in life, you've got to get your mind kind of wrapped around it. And I think the biggest thing for advisors is that you have to be okay with some people walking away. And you have to realize that some people are not going to understand the value that you add. Most people have no idea how hard we work and what all goes on behind the scenes in planning travel. So I think, that's the first step, is really get your mind right and really think about who is your ideal client. What out of the current clients that you have, who are those clients that truly appreciate and value the time and energy and thought that you put into making sure that their experience is seamless. So that's really the first step, is like, get your mind right and have, learn how to have these conversations, but realize that you're not going to get 100% of the people, but that's okay, because typically the people that are going to walk away are possibly going to be the people that cause you the most anxiety anyways. So you got to be okay to let those go. And certainly right now, I mean, we are seeing the biggest surge in travel that we've seen in a really long time. I mean, this December, we are never this busy in December, and we are absolutely covered up. And so I think that's another reason why I thought it was important to kind of reiterate this before we start 2023, because we're on the tail end of this pandemic. It's really for that 25% who is still a little bit on the fence. We need to get you guys over the fence, because you not that you should have an excuse, but the pandemic is a really good excuse to jump on this bandwagon and jump on the fee train.
Yeah, and I know you said it seems simple getting your mind right. I know it's a thing a lot of advisors and business owners struggle with when it comes to charging for something extra, but my recommendation would listen to Tiffany. And also there's a ton of advisors in the chat right now who are talking about how they got their mind right and how they finally made the switch. So I know it seems like a simple thing, and but it also seems extremely difficult. But yeah, I would just look at your peers as sort of a piece of advice.
Well, and I think, I think this is why it's so important that everybody needs to charge what fits their business model. But I think as long as there is a fee, the more and more time that goes on, the more that becomes normalized, the less difficult it's going to be for any of us to have these conversations with clients, because they're going to expect it. I mean, they expect to pay a service fee when they go visit their attorney or their CPA or any professional service. And, and going back to the whole thing about ASTA, I think, with the travel industry, there is such a low barrier to entry. And we've discussed this a lot in the industry over the years. I think ASTA's position, by adding that credo and adding the comment about professional fees, is just another step towards putting us up there as a legitimate, professional, experienced, knowledgeable, professional service. So it's really important. It just really reinforces the work that we all do.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the feedback I'm getting right now, Tiffany, is exactly that. Is people are saying they do deserve to be compensated for their work, and separate from the commission from suppliers. But I know a lot of advisors are going to be asking about this next point, which is determining a price. And I know you're going to talk about it a little bit, but it seems like from my conversations, there's no sort of a one size fit all thing to determining a price for your service fee.
Right. Okay. Here's the thing you really have to think about is how much travel experience do you have? How long have you been working in the industry? What are you, an expert at? How many hours a week do you want to work? How many clients do you already have? How much demand? I mean, some of this is kind of just basic economics. Look at the airlines right now. I mean, airfares are outrageous right now. Why does everybody think those airfares are so outrageous? It's because there's so much demand. That's basic economics. It is, there's more demand than there is supply, so they can kind of charge what they want to. So I think advisors need to kind of operate the same way. What I have seen in the past 25 years, really since the mid 90s, when the airlines started messing with agency compensation, is that the professionalism and the savvy business owners have just elevated themselves. I mean, our industry really has become and it's because we've all had to learn how to be smart business people and stop worrying about riding the coattails of the suppliers. We have to take control of our own income and our own time and make sure that we are well compensated. So, it's looking at the time, like I said, the knowledge that you have, and the amount of business that you can personally handle. And if you're starting to get a little bit maxed out, increase your fees. I mean, honestly, what will happen is it will make some of that business go away. And this kind of goes back to another business principle of you typically get 80% of the business from 20% of the people. So, there's a thought thinking about dealing with fewer clients, but being more profitable, or at least the same profitability. And that way you're not spreading yourself too thin, because I mean, if we've learned anything in the last 2.5 years through the pandemic, it's that the internet has not made our profession go away. I mean, people need us now more than ever. And it's, I mean, for me, I told my team on March 13th, 2020, pick that laptop up off your computer and take it home and reach out to your clients, because you care. It's not about selling travel. It's about checking on people and making sure they know you care. A computer is not going to care. A computer is automation. Technology doesn't care. It's going to follow the algorithms. It's going to answer the questions. But that's really our advantage, is that we're humans caring about humans, and that is valuable.
I mean, Tiffany, so I know we're not going to address specific prices for specific businesses just because of what you just said there, but I mean, what would your advice be on someone who comes to you and says, hey, I'm going to start charging service fees next year, but I'm just not sure where to start. Maybe they book a lot of FITs, but they're just not sure what ballpark even to start in when it comes to service fees.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, and I don't have a problem like sharing some range in prices. I think when we first started charging fees, and this was many years ago, probably, 15, 20 years ago, it was $25 per trip, and then $50 and $75. I think at this point, I think that's too low. I think people should at least start at around $100. But it really comes down to how much time on average does it take you to work through a trip from start to finish? Figure out how many hours that is, and then kind of come up with an hourly rate for yourself. So whether that's $25, $50, $75, $100. For us right now, we've actually kind of modified ours a little bit, and I will give, Jamie Jones has been amazing in how she's elevated how she works and how she charges her clients. But $100 a day roughly for an FIT, and that's $100 a day based on the number of days of travel. So if they're going to be traveling for 10 days, it's $1,000. We don't really post our fees anywhere. We don't have them on our website. We do have a fee services list that we provide for our team members, and we will from time to time email that out to clients to follow up a conversation we had. But we always say that this is just kind of a baseline. This is kind of where we start, and we're really not going to know what we're going to charge you until we have a conversation with you and can fully understand where are you going, how many cities are involved, how complex is it going to be, how many modes of transportation, how many travelers are there going to be. Am I going to need to do one invoice? Is the grandmother paying for the whole family? Or am I going to need to do a different invoice for every single separate family member? So there's a lot that goes into planning these trips, and every trip is different. For us, everything we do is customized because we really want to sit down and get to know our clients. And again, this is where each advisor, each agency owner really needs to kind of step back and take a look at their company and how do they do business and how do they interact with their clients and what works for you.
Okay. So I see the chat. First of all, I want to mention, you mentioned Jamie Jones, Tiffany. Tom's going to drop the link into the session we did in 2020 with you and me and Jamie, just so if anyone wants to watch that, please watch it later. Do not leave the call right now. But if you want to watch that, you can catch that too. We have a question from Lydia in the chat. Now I'm going to bring this up now because I know we have a third step to go to, but this one sort of goes back to getting your mind right. And Lydia is a new agent, so I think it's particularly important we address this. Basically, her question is that she's afraid. She says, if I'm booking something as simple as a cruise, I cannot afford to lose business knowing that they can book direct if she's telling them about a fee. Would you have any advice for that mindset and overcoming that hurdle?
First thing I would say is, why did they call you instead of booking direct? You have to think about, they have a problem. There's something there. There's a hurdle that they can't get over on their own. Either they're overwhelmed when they get to the cruise line website, which, these days, a lot of the cruise line websites are fairly easy to navigate, but they're overwhelmed, or maybe it's that they're not sure, they don't know what they don't know. What is it that is making them call you in the first place? So I think, that's really where you have to kind of back up and think about, why are people calling you? Are they typically starting the conversation with, I've been online and I'm so overwhelmed? I mean, how many of us have heard that over the years? And, so when you go to a supplier's website, unless you're working with someone like ALG, which offers multiple destinations, multiple suppliers within their portfolio, you know, if you're going to Delta Airlines, you're only going to see flights on Delta or their partner airlines. Well, there could be a lower fare or a better flight on American, but you've got to now go to American's website to look at that, unless, of course, you go to Expedia or Orbitz or something. So I think we have to remember that when people call us, there's questions. They're not quite sure, or they wouldn't have called you in the first place. So I think you really need to create what we call in our company an intake process. You need to kind of figure out who is your ideal client, and you need to figure out why people are calling you. What is it, the problem that they're trying to get your help to solve? And can you solve that problem? And so, you know, how many years have you learned things about the different ships? And when they call you about this cruise, are you advising them about the fact that they may have asked about one particular sailing or one particular ship, but as you ask questions, you've actually determined that that might not be the best option for them, and you make a recommendation of another option? That those tiny little things that we do in these conversations are valuable. You're saving that client time, you're saving them money. And, you know, at the biggest part of this, you could possibly be saving their whole vacation, which is very valuable.
Yeah, and I know what you just mentioned, Tiffany, that there's what your agency does. And I see more agency owners in the chat talking about what they do. Everyone seems to have a different model, and I don't think there is any one correct model. But it does help to sort of have these conversations with other advisors. So I know you have one last point we want to make in sort of starting how to charge service fees, and then we're going to get into questions. So just a reminder, the first one was get your mind right, which we spoke about, determine a price. And then the third one is pick a time.
Pick a date and just start. You know what? I mean, there's so many quotes out there about waiting until everything's perfect to get started. Don't do that. Don't wait. Just pick a date and start somewhere. Because, you know, what you could do is, because I get a lot of questions of how do I start charging fees to people that I've been working with for years. Start with new clients, start with new prospects that are calling you, you know, and you have to kind of determine what kind of things you want to work on and what, you know, I mean, typically you're going to focus on something that you're passionate about and you know really well. You're going to be able to sell those things really well because you know it really well. And the other thing I don't want to forget to mention today is that we have to remember the suppliers pay us these commissions because we are salespeople working on their behalf to represent their products to the right people, to learn about their products, to, you know, I mean, to put those things on our, you know, our shelves, so to speak, you know, to offer those to our clients. That's why the suppliers pay us. But the things that you do for your client are totally unrelated to that. You're thinking about the client and what kind of traveler they are and the type of vacation that they're looking for. And so that's really unrelated to what the supplier is paying you for. And for me, I think over the years, what has been really eye-opening is how I began to see our advisors react when they sat down and had a 30 or 45-minute conversation with a client, and they confidently spoke about all the ways that they could help them, and they got excited with that client about the experience they were looking to take. And then they started talking about how we charge, and you know, it's going to be a minimum of a, you know, $750 fee or whatever the case may be. And, you know, there's always that moment that you think, are they going to do it or are they not? And when they would pull out their checkbook or whip out their debit card and throw it out on the table and say, let's go, let's get started, we can't wait to get started. When those clients would leave the building and I would see that advisor like just sit up like a peacock and be so excited because now they feel valued and they're so excited to get to work on this experience. And what the client doesn't even realize is because they have taken a moment to put some trust in that advisor and to pay that planning fee, that advisor is going to go to the ends of the earth to make sure that that client is satisfied and happy with their experience. So it's really a win-win-win for everybody.
Okay. So I want to we have a list of questions we sort of crowdsourced prior to this from attendees who hopefully are on the call. I see some more coming from chat. I just want to address a couple of them now, and then we're going to get to these specific questions. Donna wants to know, is this recorded? Yes, this will be recorded, and this will be up live on our YouTube page a little later today. And then I have a couple of questions about templates for sort of a terms and conditions sheet when it comes to charging fees. We actually did a session on terms and conditions, and hopefully Tom can drop that in the chat in a little bit, which might get into specifically how you build these sheets and how you legally turn over a fee sheet to a client and things like that. So hopefully that will help you. If there's any other questions, again, we have 15 to 20 minutes left, so we have a ton to get to, but if you have any questions, and we'll try to get to them as well. But Tiffany, you mentioned that there's a lot of this, there is a big hang up about how am I going to break the news to my longtime clients or my clients, my regular clients, that I'm going to start charging a fee. And that was actually one of the most common questions we got from people coming into this session today is, how do I break this news to clients who've been with me for a long time?
You just have to have a conversation. I don't recommend necessarily like printing something out and doing like a blast mailing to all your clients. And I wouldn't do that. I would make it very personal. I think what we do as a profession is travel is a very emotional purchase, and the relationship that we have with our clients is typically pretty personal. And so I would just recommend that as those existing clients call in and you're having these conversations about the next trip, I would just say, hey, Dan, I just wanted to let you know there have been some changes that I've had to make to my business, due to the cost of everything going up, and I'm sure you've experienced that, but the cost of doing business for us has gone up as well. And I really appreciate you as a customer over these years. I've really enjoyed helping you make sure that you have great travel experiences. But I am going to be implementing a service fee for the things that I do. And I just wanted to make you aware of that. We actually collect our planning fees before we get started. So I know that's probably another question that you're going to get to, but for those people who are doing work before you're getting paid, please stop. Please just stop doing that. Don't do that. Don't be a doormat. Don't let people work you to death. Like, make sure that they've got some skin in the game. And even if you don't collect the entire fee up front, get a deposit of some sort that is non-refundable. Because if you're going to stop and spend time investing in a travel experience for a client, and remember, there's a lot of like verbiage that I can share. And one of the most valuable is, and I've said this many times over the years, you can always make more money. But when that week or that 2 weeks of vacation is gone, it is gone forever. So do you want to, roll the dice and risk it? Do you want your family members to be moaning and groaning at you if you pick the wrong resort or you pick the wrong destination or you do it in the wrong order? Or do you want to make sure that it's really well thought out and you've got everything fitting together seamlessly? It's kind of like an insurance policy on making sure things are well thought out.
Yeah. And so Tiffany, will you have an initial consultation with potential clients without a fee?
We will, but the initial consultation is all about understanding who they are as a client, what kind of traveler are they, what kind of experience are they looking for, and explaining to them how we work. Our whole process. We're very upfront. We're very transparent. We're happy to answer questions about, one of the things that people have sometimes said over the years is, I thought you earn money from the vendors. Well, sure, we do earn some commissions from some of the suppliers that we work with. But if you've got a longtime client that you make really good money on some trips for, and then they call you and they want to do a multi-generational trip and they want to go to South Dakota and see Mount Rushmore and then make their way over to Yellowstone and spend some time there, are you going to tell them that you can't help them with that? Or wouldn't it be better if you said, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get started on that for you. That sounds like so much fun. In order to do that, it's going to be $75 per day or $100 per day or $125 per day to work through all the logistics and make sure that everything's perfect for you. I mean, give the client the opportunity to opt in or opt out. Let them be the one to decide whether they want to do that or not. And chances are, if they walk away from you, they just need some time to have a conversation with the spouse or the other travelers. They may even decide to go home and get online and start poking around on their own. But I can tell you probably 8 to 9 times out of 10, they are going to circle back around within 72 hours because they've once again realized they don't have the time, they don't have the desire, they need to really turn this over to a professional.
Just going off of that thought, one very specific question came in that I thought was good because it sort of reflects what you just went through. And it was from an advisor who said she's experiencing more calls now coming in that are shoppers and not true buyers. And she says, what do you recommend on how to target true travelers and not necessarily this population of shoppers? And it seems like what you just said is a good way to do that.
Absolutely. Get rid of those tire kickers. Like, don't let them take up too much of your time. I mean, how many of us know time is money? And, you know, do you want to spend time all day long on speculative travel? You have to make sure that you are creating a process for yourself to determine, is this a potential good fit for me? Am I going to be able to add value? And what can I charge? And I would quote a fee before you even start working. I'm happy to work on that for you. I mean, you have to force people to officially hire you to begin working. You don't go visit your doctor and expect to never pay an office visit. You don't go visit your CPA and have them prepare your taxes and then get them and say, oh no, this doesn't work for me. I'm not going to pay you for that. I mean, there's no other industry where people are working for free. I mean, we are in the for-profit business and you shouldn't be working for free. So you need to just be very upfront. And as long as you tell people how we work and what we do, what we charge is very fair. If they don't think it's fair, then they're probably not the right customer for you, quite honestly. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter.
Okay. Yeah, and we did have a conversation earlier in the year with an advisor, talk to us about how to essentially fire a client. And so that is a theme that service fees can certainly help with. Another common question that came up through the responses we got this week was flexibility with the service fee. And I think that goes two ways. It goes, are there any situations where you would cut a service fee or you would change the service fee, Tiffany? And then there was another sort of thread that was about, are there any situations where you would ever terminate a service fee or waive a service fee for a client?
We would never waive a service fee because we do too much work. We provide a travel app for people to have their documents in their phone. We have a lot of quality control that it's part of our process of how we handle our travel planning. So we have too many people involved in our company, making sure every experience is perfect. So we would never cut our fees. Sure, if you meet with a new client and you're trying to win somebody over, you may offer to do a little bit extra for them in the beginning. A good example of that is if I had a really good longtime client that called me right now and they're looking to travel in the next 3 weeks. Am I going to charge them a fee before I start digging in to see if there's anything available over the holidays? No, I'm going to poke around first. And I'm going to make sure that there's something available within the price range that they're looking to pay. And if there is, then I'm going to go back to them and say, I think I've got some good options. In order for me to really continue to move forward, I'm going to send you our forms. You're going to need to sign off on everything. And we could probably have this wrapped up in the next 72 hours. Are you in or are you out? I mean, that's kind of where you get to with people is, are they in or are they out? Are they committed, or are they just kind of thinking about this? It's kind of like when you plan group travel, and we're in a college town. So it's usually spring break, we have people come and there's going to be 50 people that want to go on this cruise. And by the time it's all said and done, the minute the deposit is required, everybody scatters. And that's when you know who's committed and who's not. It's the same with individual travel as well.
And we have a question from a new advisor in the chat. And I think this is interesting. She says she hasn't been in the business that long, and she wants to know if do you still think she's able to charge a fee, considering, I guess, comparably to other advisors, she might not have the experience she thinks she needs right now.
First thing I would say is, what do you feel knowledgeable about? Do you have people that you can lean on for expert advice to kind of help you through some of those travel planning scenarios? I know some of that may be a little bit more difficult for independent contractors versus people that are, working with a team in an office and things like that. We're all kind of a little bit more in this remote world now, but if you feel like you have people you can lean on, 100% you should charge something, because if nothing else, the time that you're saving the client, the time that you're spending yourself is valuable. If you don't charge anything, then basically what you're saying is my time is worth nothing. And that's not the case for any of us. So, the other thing that sometimes I will say when people call and they say, well, so-and-so down the road, or, whatever, they won't charge a fee. So I'm just going to call them back. Put a little doubt in their mind. If they're not charging a fee, that means 100% of the income that they're going to make from planning your itinerary is from a supplier. Is that really in your best interest? Are they really looking out for your best interest? Or are they focused on the supplier that's going to pay them the most money? I'm not saying that that is the case, but all you have to do is put a little bit of doubt in somebody's mind. And this is why, like for me, I prefer to work with a fee-based financial planner, because they're not going to steer me in a direction that's just going to, line their pockets with commissions that they're making on the back end. They're really looking out for my best interest. And that's what, to me, that's where our entire industry needs to get to. We're working for the client first and foremost.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier in the call that the airline commission cuts in the 90s, and I know advisors are all too familiar with what happened during those first few months of COVID. I don't want to ask you for specifics, Tiffany, but comparably in your business, how is the revenue of the ratio of revenue from service fees and the ratio of revenue from commissions?
Yeah, so 25 to 30% of our total revenue is from the professional fees that we charge. I know that there are some agencies out there that it's even higher, but I'm in a TAMS group with Eric Marinoff and Jamie Jones is as well. And we are typically two of the highest percentage of professional fees throughout all the TAMS groups. And my goal personally is to get to a minimum of I want to switch it completely. Instead of it being 75% supplier, 25% fees, I really want it to get to be more 50-50 or 75% fees, 25% supplier. It doesn't mean that we value the money that the suppliers pay us. We value the work that what they invest in us, but you just have to remember there's a lot more to it. You're not just working for one particular supplier. You're having to know about a lot of different products in a lot of different places. And your travel is worth something that you invest in yourself. It's like getting a master's degree in any industry.
So you mentioned groups, and again, we have about 5 minutes left. So I know there's a lot of people asking for a template from another advisor in the chat, but if you have any questions for Tiffany, you might have some time at the end. We have a little more than 5 minutes left. But Tiffany, you mentioned group travel, and that was a question that came in prior to the session. One advisor was hoping you could give any sort of guidance on how do you charge fees for a group, whether it's multifamily, friends, associates, corporate incentive crews, after you've sort of already built in your fee for individual travel or smaller group travel, I guess.
So groups are definitely a little bit of a different beast. I think, it depends on the type of group. It depends on, have you worked with these people before? Destination wedding groups are a little bit tricky because typically, the bulk of the work goes in to what you do for the wedding couple initially. And, once the date is set and the resort is set, everybody kind of knows where they need to be when. And so they certainly could book on their own, but you're still going to be handling aspects of the trip for them to make sure that everything is cohesive and that sort of thing. So, I mean, groups definitely can be, I can't really say there's a perfect scenario, but how we typically go about groups is it starts at around $800. It depends on how many people are part of the group. Again, it goes back, how many cities are involved? How many, how complex is the itinerary? We always look at every single itinerary and really kind of think about, is this going to take us 3 or 4 hours from start to finish, or is it going to take us 20 plus hours to get accomplished from start to finish? And then that's kind of, but we do typically try to collect that amount up front. Now, there's also groups where you may have affinity groups and things like that you do. You can kind of, include your fees as part of the total trip cost, but I would still break those out in the invoice so they know that, if the total trip cost was $5,000, that, 500 of that was the fee that you earned for all the work that you did for them. Again, I really think, we get so wrapped up in these numbers, and if you've got somebody that's spending $10, $15, $20, $30,000 on a vacation, I mean, $500 is not that much money. I mean, you really just have to take it and look at the big picture of all the work that you're doing and all the money they're investing in that experience.
Yeah. So I see people still asking for a template. I know we're not going to share any fee schedule today, but I see the emails in there, and I'll have those, and I'll do my best to sort of circle back, hopefully by the end of the year, and then see if I can talk to advisors for something like this. But another question that came in, Tiffany, today, actually, and I think this is an interesting one because I know a lot of advisors have different takes on this. And this one seems maybe a little more fun of a question, but what's an appropriate name for your fee? I know we titled this session service fees, and I know a lot of people call them a lot of different things, like planning fees, design fees, creation fees, coordination fees. What's your recommendation when advisors are trying to figure out what to call their fee?
We call our services. These are the services that we offer. This is what we charge for our services. We really do try to get away from the word fee because, people, and here's the other thing, like when you're quoting people, when you send them their proposal, I mean, obviously, if you're going to charge them a planning fee up front, they're going to know what that is. But when, we typically try to make sure that, like, when they tell us their budget for what they have to spend on that experience, we're going to make sure that that budget is going to be enough to cover both their travel experience and what we're going to charge. If it's not, then we're not going to go too far in the process with those clients, but we typically just refer to them as services.
Okay. And then the last question that was fairly common amongst respondents this week was something we talked a little bit about earlier in the call today, and it's just when should I request my service fee? I know we had some questions about how do I tactfully request a service fee once I start planning a process. But I guess in your mind, Tiffany, it's like you said earlier today, it's you're getting that fee after the initial consultation, or you're not going to do any more work for this client.
Yeah, so we do an initial consultation for free. So we want to, spend a few minutes, and that can be anywhere from 15 minutes to 45 minutes. We really do try to keep it under an hour. We do have a little bit of a process of like our vetting people a little bit in the initial, like when they call or they email us or whatever, we try to kind of scope it out a little bit. If we've never worked with them before, have they ever worked with an advisor before? You know, what kind of budget do they have? We try to ask questions to kind of figure out quickly if it's going to be a good fit. Our philosophy is service. I mean, we are a service industry at the end of the day. So we always operate, we want to be very professional and very polite. And if it is something that we feel like we're not going to take on, we at least try to point them in the right direction for them to be able to do it on their own. But I would not start doing research and pulling together proposals and different scenarios and options until you've collected some type of money up front. And you need to make sure that the client knows, I'm going to do a little bit of work. It's going to take me a couple of hours. I'm going to need at least whatever, you know, as a deposit, or this will go towards your total planning fee. I'm going to need this up front before you really invest too much time.
Okay. And then the last question that came in, and this is going to be it for today. Do you have an opinion on other kinds of fees that are involved throughout sort of the process of booking travel? And particularly, people mentioned requote fees or cancellation fees, which I know was a big thing that came up during the pandemic, those slates of cancellations the first few months. But do you consider these as part of your service fee? Is this something you implement in your business, or is this something else completely?
100%. I mean, you're going to do all that work, and you're going to, if they decide to cancel, you're going to let all that money go away, and all that, you know, if it is 25-75, you're going to watch 75% of our income go away. That's what we did in 2020. We had been planning for months and months and months, and then we watched 75% of our income go away. And kudos to the suppliers that did right by the client and refunded their money, because their services had not been provided at that point. Unfortunately, the tragedy of it all is that the travel agencies had provided the service. Our work was pretty much completed at that point. So we are the ones that really got left out when that happened. And what I would really like to see is, I would really like to see suppliers have non-refundable deposits, and in those non-refundable deposits should be included the commissions that are paid to the advisors, so that in the future, if something like that happens again, or the client cancels or whatever, we still get paid for the work that we have already completed. But at the end of the day, the only way you're going to take control of your business and your own income is to figure out how much money you want to make, how much of that is coming from your suppliers, and then you need to subsidize the rest by charging the fees.
Well, I don't think there's a better note to end on than that one, Tiffany. I still see some more questions in the chat. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to them all today. Again, this is recorded. We'll have it live on our YouTube channel and our training page later today. And if you're looking for more information about service fees, please make sure you're subscribed to TMR. I'm going to do my best to answer whatever questions that were left in the chat throughout the week. But again, Tiffany, I really can't thank you for the time. I know how busy you are. I know how busy the industry is, and I really do appreciate all your words of wisdom today.
I'll just mention real quick, if anybody wants kind of a summary of some of the things that I talked about today, if they go to travelconsultingassociates.com, they can download a PDF. And I've tried to summarize a lot of my notes and even some scripts and things of how to deal with objections. So I would recommend that they take a look at that, travelconsultingassociates.com.
All right. So again, Tiffany, thank you so much. Tyler from ALG Vacations, also thank you to him and to the whole ALG Vacations team. And thanks again to everyone who's joined me this year. It's really been a pleasure to speak to you every couple of weeks. And I hope to see you all in 2023. And I hope everyone has a happy and a safe holiday season.
Yes. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye.
Bye.